They're scared of us. They're seeing the power rise within minorities and especially Asian Americans. So if you are not valuing yourself as much as a white supremacist, then I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say to you.
Welcome to the Seoulite
Podcast coming
Worldwide
up.
Exclusive. It's the Seoulite Sean.
Listener discretion is advised.
You're in Seoul.
So I've heard from a good friend who wrote a very compelling post about her personal response to the latest murders and Asian American hate crimes. And she said that she felt a little bit uncomfortable with taking up space in any kind of public arena where it seems as if Black people need to have Black Lives Matter first and foremost. And I said that, well, of course the two things can go together. And as Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Just as many Asian Americans supported the Black Lives Matter movement because we could find commonalities and resonate with the themes of oppression and racism, though not everything, but of course we could see what was in common. I believe that the movement by Asian Americans speaking up also strengthen other minority groups who see similar resonance, because we do know what the common denominator is. It's white supremacy. White supremacy enacts on all of us all the time. It's kind of like just if there's like 5 leaks in a boat, and if you only take care of one, the boat will still sink. So I think it's great that we're at a tipping point now where Asian Americans as a whole, on the majority level, feel like it's time to act. I say that with a heavy heart because for me, the journey towards activism started, I would say in terms of Asian American activism, started when I was in college. So that's well over 20 years ago. And of course, during that time, my heart was crushed and eyes were open to the unfairness and how endemic and structural it was. But what made me more frustrated and actually even more upset was how many Asian Americans were not along for the journey, not willing to join, and also even actively working against it. At the heart of that, as we've seen now, and as this generation has aged and is able to reflect and become very self-aware, is a lot of it is rooted in self-hate. So I feel like we're, as a community, in the majority. I'm not talking about the activists who've already been, they've already been on the cutting edge and they're on the front lines. But I'm saying like the majority, it seems like they're just waking up. I think in that sense, we're like a whole step behind Black Lives Matter. We're at Stop Asian Hate. We're not even at the point of Asian Lives Matter. And I think that's now something that people are waking up to, feeling like they should say that they matter as well. On the one hand, I think it's very embarrassing that a whole community is at this point already in 2021 where they publicly cannot value themselves and fight for their rights. On the other hand, it just has to be done eventually. So hopefully this is the time now, because the way I see it is that it was a logical progression to how we got here. So I'll say three things I've noticed. The same action of an Asian person living and operating in a white American space and projecting that their lives don't matter as much, I think first comes from subliminal messaging. You don't even realize you are doing it. Having weaker body posture or not speaking up as much, kind of fitting into the mold of what a white supremacist wants Asian people to be. Given green light and approval if you do it, and red light and disapproval if you don't do it. I've seen people change their behavior to fit into this mold. One thing that I'll never forget that still bothers me, and I don't even know how to say it, but these things I think happen on this like subconscious level. And one time I was shocked and disgusted, and we're talking about violence against Asian American females. I think this is also somewhat of what happens that leads up to it. We were young, maybe it was like mid-20s. We're just talking with a group of people. I think it was maybe at work, I can't remember. But essentially there was a white man in power positions. This one girl, Asian American girl, was like having, I guess, some sort of issue with like explaining something, and then she changed her posture where her groin opened up. Like she was offering it. Oh my God, I don't even want to say this. But in that sense, like to calm maybe like white aggression down or divert their attention. Like it just seemed like such a horrible, like subconscious gesture. And I'm sure like she was doing that because somewhere along the line she got approval for that, and she found it as a way to break through. I also will never forget, like one of my first jobs, it was like a very white office, and after a while I could kind of sense that people wanted me to act a certain way, and they were frustrated that I was not. How you can feel it is almost as if like you get hit with energy, like way somebody looks at you, the way that people respond to you. It's like, especially when they're like holding back, like they were like, and then they kind of just make the response, and you're like, was that? Or was it not? Now being in Korea, I would say this is the one big gift of being in Korea, is that Korean people in society and in power here, they act the same as like racist white people. In terms of like every society you go to, it just recalibrates, and then you have that people trying to abuse each other, and I could see some similarities where. Like Korean people will try to slide it under the radar, and it was very similar to like all of these instances when I kind of was wondering like if it was racist or not in America, and I could see now, yes, it was. The first one I think is like basically we're getting like all of these subliminal cues from the media and from people at work, people in society, through the way that they shame you, applaud you, into the way that they want to program a race to act. And so subliminally, I think like, not by anybody's own fault, they are doing things that make them say and project to the world that Asian lives don't matter as much. Second one, I think, is you just made the wrong logical choice. The logical choice is that by shrinking and devaluing oneself, making us less of a threat, is a way to create safety, is a way to kind of, sneak through a little bit if you're like trying to, move up in a racist society. Like if it's got to be racist anyway, might as well just do what I can to kind of like accept what I can get and slither up through the corners and, see how far I can do. And so that's a logical choice to say that I don't matter as much, but hey, let me be like, your pal, or like, be your lapdog, and take me along for the ride. Maybe it'll be better doing that than being totally shut out. And so now I think what Asian Americans are seeing is that might be logical short-term choices, but in the long run, it still doesn't matter. We're still going to get killed by white supremacy. We're still going to get blocked by white supremacy. So what is the point of saying our lives don't matter as much and then have all the mental issues that come with that? It doesn't make sense anymore. And I think that's what people are really waking up to. So again, we're saying that the same behavior of expressing that Asian lives don't matter as much can have many different origins. I'd say the third one is the worst. It is a conscious choice to be like the Asian Uncle Tom, to be like the Asian Stacey Dash, or to be like the Asian Omarosa. Essentially, be that token Asian American who's gonna bash and say Asian lives don't matter as much, but I'm just one that, can be part of this crowd. Like in Australia, I think I've seen some of these YouTubes oh, you're Asian, but at least you're a pretty Asian. You're just the chosen one. And you really protect that precarious status of just being that chosen one in a sea of white supremacy. And to do that and to maintain your position and to remind the white massa that you are okay to be there is to prove your loyalty by devaluing your community. So by devaluing, again, Asian lives. So first, I think it's subliminal. Second is a conscious choice just to stay safe. It's basically faulty logic. And third is actually reprehensible logic, where basically you're trying to get ahead by selling out your whole community. So these are the three things I think can help solve this problem. First, if it's subliminal, then you start subliminal to combat that. And I would say start with body posture. If you can't always control your mind, but you can kind of control your body. So make sure that your body is always in a bit of more of a power position if you've been more conditioned to kind of shrink, look up some videos, read some books on good body language. I know that I think that was a problem for me, and who knows? That could have helped me. Maybe it helped me. Basically it's like the non-threatening Asian, and then suddenly I started to be threatening, and then people got mad. Anyhow. Second, I would say make different logical choices. Now consciously know that choosing to devalue yourself and your community is not going to work in the long run. So we have to find a different path. We have to find a different way, because just being like the lapdog for massa is not going to result in basically a long-term survival. And then third, those Asian Americans who are just so happy to be the house slave and then turn around that racism against other Asian Americans. And a lot of times these were the best and brightest of our community. It felt like such a betrayal. And so now I would say call them out on it. Call them out. And don't help them. A lot of times it's gaslighting. And what these Uncle Toms, these Asian Uncle Toms do for the white supremacists is basically say my Asian friend over there, who I have under my control, doesn't think that there's anything wrong with my behavior or what I'm saying. Do you? And of course it's yes, master, everything is fine. It's the whole thing of I can't be racist because I have an Asian friend. Doesn't work that way. Not we're trying to make everybody an activist. It's just people who felt like they can just get by without thinking about race they're now realizing that they have a responsibility too. It's just kind of maintaining something. You feel I never had to change the oil, but now you have to, keep an eye on your odometer. It's your responsibility also to change the oil in the car. So it's everybody's responsibility to be vigilant and contribute to the community. Yeah, because who's going to be there for you? As you saw, a lot of these people got attacked. They said nobody helped me. And that is the ultimate kind of terror of being a minority anywhere, but in the case of being Asian American in America, and why I think people chose to have this survival mechanism of devaluing themselves just to be included, is because you don't want to be in that situation where nobody helps you. At least if you're like somebody's slave, they'll help you out. That's what you chose. But now I think people are seeing that that's a foolhardy choice and nobody's going to help you anyway. So we have to help ourselves first. We have to say that we value ourselves first. This is the problem, because it's that old adage, if you can't value yourself, how are you going to let other people know that you should be valued? And I think that's been a huge problem with the Asian American community. They are not saying that they should be valued. They are not saying that they matter. And that has to change. Yes, the hate has to stop. We have to hold people accountable, and we have to change the laws so that the punishment is more of a deterrent for this to happen. But before all of that can happen, I think we have to look at ourselves and say we matter, and be very honest with ourselves by saying that we have chosen a very dysfunctional path where we devalued ourselves for a very long time, and then that has to stop. And ironically, I'll tell you the biggest irony, the fact that these attacks are happening with more and more frequency is that the white supremacists are actually, follow me on this, valuing us more. They're scared of us. They're seeing the power rise within minorities, and especially Asian Americans. So if you are not valuing yourself as much as a white supremacist, then I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say to you. You need to value yourself as much as the white supremacist does. And that is why they're attacking us, because they see us as more of a threat. So if their value on us has risen, your value on yourself should also rise, and rise way more above. It is time. It is time. That's all I'm going to say for this. Thanks for joining me on my rant. This is like a breaking point. This is a tipping point. And I hope we can move through it together. All right, bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.